About Nairobi's growing influence. Let's look at some statistics. Nairobi has got more than 120 diplomatic missions. This compares to 60 in Tanzania and 134 in South Africa. These are desktop research. And Kenya's got probably the highest concentration of media houses and correspondents in sub-Saharan Africa.
Correct.
Probably larger than South Africa. And then BBC has got a big office in Nairobi. The JKI is a regional aviation hub. It goes 39 airlines operating from JKI, going to 64 destinations. Nairobi has got one of the biggest offices of Bretton Woods institution. And for the interest of Nurdin, Bretton Woods here means IMF and World Bank. Of course, I'm kidding. And then we've got a session of paper on foreign policy, which Musalia Mudavadi has consulted everybody. And when Musalia Mudavadi recently was in Geneva, the UN Office for the Commission for the Human Rights have actually said they want to establish an office in Nairobi, a multi-country, to look at issues. Now, that is one aspect. The second aspect is that our neighbors in the region, when they want to speak to their audiences back at home, they come to Nairobi. Like, for instance, when Tshisekedi wanted to run for president, he came to Serena. A few days ago, when people were doing demonstrations against President Museveni, they came to Nairobi. You've had people from, we had South Sudan in Machakos. You've got Sudan in Nairobi a few days ago, which has raised the eyebrows. So it seems that the 2010 constitution has made Kenya a regional center. Even when you're talking about education, understand that Kenyan education is highly regarded across the world. What do you make of this position to get the UN to have the Human Rights Office outside Geneva and New York, located in Nairobi?
It's purely out of Kenya's stability, not necessarily our loss. And foreign policies largely depends on who is in the seat of power. Even if you have one written in gold, bound very well, when a new president comes, they have to be varied one way or the other. You will start seeing who is really close to, who is not close to, things that are happening. Actually, you remember when President William Ruto got into office, he was embraced right from South Africa to the United States. The only thing that has really dragged him back is this conspiracy that his deputy brought in to assemble what they call Gen Zs to establish his government. You know, the foreigners, what they look at, they look back at what the local media is reporting, and they say, this is what is happening in Kenya. If you are unfortunate, like President William Ruto, that you have a very partisan media, you are in trouble. You remember those many letters that were written to, was it to The Hague? Petitions against President William Ruto. Do you know that thing was planned? And the people who are writing them were being selected and told to write and what to write. And those people think, oh, Kenyans are really writing out here. This thing was very well planned. But I want people who are learned and educated to tell us, what is this that President William Ruto has done differently from the past 4 presidents? Nothing. The only difference is that President William Ruto is a Kalenjin. And is not acceptable to the majority of those people because of his tribe, nothing else.
Is that a statement of fact?
It's a fact. It's very factual.
But Owidia said he wants the people who are learned to tell him.
And you consider yourself being a learned friend. Because you're a learned friend, that's how you step in.
We can offer.
Yes, Mongale,
and say that, yes, William Ruto has not done anything different from what the other presidents has done. And the reason I say that is this, that while other presidents have looted this country, William Ruto has also looted. While other presidents have superintended over human rights abuses, William Ruto has done the same. While other presidents have ostracized certain communities, William Ruto has done the same. While other presidents have not been keen enough to, give or to champion economic prosperity, William Ruto has done the same. The speck in the neighbor's eye is usually appears larger than the log the log in one person's eyes. And I've heard already say of Trump that Trump, it was unfortunate that the US elected Trump, who is a businessman, looks only at what comes.
Real estate guy.
But on the other hand, he's calling William Ruto a brilliant leader. But they are cut from the same cloth. While Trump was a businessman from times past, William Ruto is also a businessman.
Today,
all these projects we are seeing, nothing is signed off without William Ruto getting his share.
Are you talking about state capture?
You need your opinion.
Of course, yeah, it is a learned opinion. That's requested. So William Ruto is not different from the other presidents, because they are cut from the same cloth. Politicians who are out to impoverish, and while they might appear in harambes, appear in church services, in funerals, and tell us, we want to unite this country. That is what they are saying. But what they do is totally different. I have mentioned before that William Ruto has now become a master political ventriloquist. Those people who appear with, they have a puppet in their hand, and, you are misdirected to think that the voice you are hearing is coming from the puppet in the hand, yet, the person is actually speaking. And that is how William Ruto operates. He's not a unique figure in politics. Raila Odinga operates the same way. Uhuru Kenyatta operated the same way. All these politicians operated the same way. But back to the question of Nairobi and Kenya, and I agree with Owidi that Kenya stabilized much earlier. Uganda had problems right up to 86, 88 when the National Resistance Army of Museveni took over. Tanzania was not economically viable as a regional hub. Sudan, as it then was, had issues, Somalia, and all our neighbors. So we were the well-off cousin, if I may use that terminology. But increasingly, because of that position, you have had international actors, setting up base here, whether they were setting up base for the good of the continent or not, because we've had, certain actors operating from here, but interfering with Somalia, operating from here, interfering with Sudan, interfering with Congo, and so on. But we have also been a refuge for our neighbors. There was a time when Somalia's government was formed right here in Nairobi.
And domicile in Isili.
Exactly. Now, there's a government that Kenya is supporting that has been formed here in Nairobi again. South Sudan, the same thing has happened in South Sudan. So we are a refuge to the region. But although that is increasingly being eroded because of the shifty foreign policy, if at all we should call it foreign policy, the way we interact with our neighbors is slowly eroding the trust they have in us. We have now a culture of interference. I was speaking to somebody, I think just today, we were talking about some peacekeepers somebody who was part of peacekeepers in Morocco. And this is what Kenya was known for. We were known for peacekeeping. If you go to certain places in this country, you'd find settlements that have names of certain cities and regions across the continent, because soldiers who came from peacekeeping missions then settled there. It is testament to the position we occupied. The reason why you would find now these international institutions and agencies setting camp here is because Kenya is a peaceful base, not because they are coming here to benefit the country, but Kenya is a peaceful base to fly out of if you are going to Somalia, which is very volatile.
The aviation hub.
Exactly. If you're going to Sudan, if you're going to Congo, we are in that position. So I'm very hesitant to celebrate those inroads, because they then position us against our neighbors.
But not speaking from a lawyer's perspective, going by the 2010 constitution,
yes,
if people from, say, DRC come to Kenya and they want to address their audience back at home, from Sudan, South Sudan, from Somalia, even Tindilusu from Tanzania, if they're coming to Kenya to address their voters back at home, if they're coming to Kenya to form their civil societies, if they're coming to Kenya to form demonstrations. Is there anything wrong in them doing so if they do not, they're not in breach of our constitution, if it's not a criminal offense? Should you be worried that, say, if RSF comes to town and they want to do a news conference somewhere, that it may interfere with state-to-state relationship, but while in fact they're not in breach of any laws in Kenya?
We are just a collection of villages. Kenya is a village, Uganda, they're just crossing a village boundary and, coming to Nairobi. While there is nothing, manifestly wrong in that, if, for example, you have individuals who are subverting democratically elected government and they are conducting their operations in Nairobi with the support of our government, then that is a cause for concern. But if they're just doing that as, citizens who have come to this country, citizens of other countries who have come to this country, they have a right. They have a right to, exercise, their freedoms. Because when they come into the country, they are subjecting themselves to the laws of this country. And the laws of this country, beginning with the 2010 Constitution, guarantee certain freedoms that cannot be violated just because we do not agree with them.
Now, Nurudin, you're celebrated as a mediation expert. So is there anything wrong if people from Sudan, they say we are unhappy with the status quo, let's go and organize ourselves in Nairobi? If Tundu Lissu has survived what he described as assassination attempts in Tanzania, he comes to Nairobi Hospital, a celebrated hospital in Kenya, is treated, and in the process of recovery does a news conference. Should Nairobi be afraid that what an opposition politician says in Kenya may compromise our relationship with their host countries?
You spoke about mediation. And mediation wants a facilitator that is impartial. From how this thing has occurred, it seems like we are partisan. We favor one party. And if you look at the statements that come out after some blunders that are done in Nairobi, it shows you that clearly we are partisan. And it shows that during those meetings, if they are boardroom meetings with different parties, we lie to them, tuko na wewe. Our foreign policy ni kama ile kuja tuongea tuwezi kosana. It's like you're tricking both of them, trying to play both of them. It can never work. It will backfire on you at the end of the day, and that's what is happening. He says we're meddling. Yes, we last time I was here, I told you, Manchester United, a team I love and support, we used to call Man City fans noisy neighbors. Us Kenyans, now we look like nosy neighbors because we're in everybody's business while our own house has issues.
But you've raised a fundamental point about meddling. Is there actually anything wrong in meddling if it serves Kenya's national and public interest?
So which interest is that? When these two factions are fighting, each claiming to be the government of a particular area. So when you support one, what do you mean then?
Let's take the example of South Sudan. Sudan. You don't have a democratically elected administration. All of them are military generals. So there's nobody who would say that has got the popular mandate to lead. All of them came to power through a coup.
Yes.
And it's in Kenya's interest, one would assume, to have a democratic government in Sudan. So if one group says that let's go to Nairobi so that we can form our party there, there's a high concentration of media, the constitution allows us to speak our mind without checking on who is checking on your back. Is there anything wrong in that?
If they're coming, as you say, to speak, to talk about their issues, no problem. But if you're coming to form a parallel government, that in itself is wrong at the end of the day.
Does that contravene the Kenyan constitution?
It actually means, it puts us in a very tight spot internationally. So at the end of the day, we are trying to say that, we are saying that none of them is a legitimate government, right? And then we decide who we feel is legitimate by giving one an avenue to form a government.
No, you're not even telling them.
We're discussing.
They just know that if you go to Nairobi, you will address all the international media, you'll get everything. Now, if you're talking about meddling, then you'd also accuse Donald Trump of the same, because he's telling Zelensky, sign this mineral deal. If you don't do this, I'm not supporting you anymore.
Yes, but that's the US. That's what they do. So are we trying to be them? Just because that doesn't mean it's right at the end of the day.
You said, as a mediation expert, you're trying to dodge a bullet. Can we meddle if the consequences serve our national and public interest?
Here's the thing. You bring about mediation. You cannot mediate without one party. What are you mediating? Both parties have to be there.
Talks before the talks.
Listen, both parties have to be there. Yes, you can have them in break rooms. Now, if one party has decided they do not want you as a facilitator, do you impose yourself as a facilitator? You don't. You recuse yourself. The same way, if I go before court and he knows, and I feel this judge isn't impartial, ask him or her to recuse himself. And they do it. So if they have told us, we do not see you, if one party says you're not impartial, we want you to step aside, and we insist, then clearly we are siding with one party.
Now, last time you indicated that if you get an invitation to State House, you would decline. But what if you get an invitation to offer an advisory opinion on the RSF matter and the meetings in Nairobi?
I still don't have a PhD, so he won't listen to me. Here's it.
I think there are two things. There's what we call diplomacy, and there's what we call meddling, as you're rightly putting it. There's proper and good-mannered meddling, which is now called diplomacy. And
there
so
you go.
you would make some inroads in South Sudan, for example, have some talks, with certain individuals, but it is not pronounced because you are doing it diplomatically, to use that term. So our meddling is such that we are outrightly supporting an outfit that is anti-government. So, for example, if we say hosted the National Unity Platform of Uganda, they are manifestly against the government of Museveni. It's an opposition party. So we hosted the NUP in Nairobi, allowed them to make.
Okay, did you host them or they came to Nairobi?
No, we hosted them.
They were guests of the state.
They were, and the reason I'm saying they were, I'm privy to some information that I will not share, but
which you already shared. That's okay.
Yes, but they were, and looking at the kind of support they got from the state, the kind of security they got from the state, the kind of logistical support they received from the government of Kenya. They were not receiving this from certain politicians or certain individuals. They received this support from the government of Kenya, and we had a statement. An overt statement that came from Ministry of Foreign Affairs acknowledging their presence and what they are doing in this country. That is taking a side in a conflict in Sudan. We are not engaging a government. We are taking a side in a protracted conflict in Sudan. It's a gamble. So what if the RSF is not the ultimate winner in that conflict? What if they go back? Or they don't go back at all. Mm-hmm. And now there is a legitimate government that takes over in Sudan. And we have seen the head of the SAF issuing some veiled threats to Kenya. Yeah. He's issuing it to William Ruto, but it's to the country, saying William Ruto has taken a path, they hope that he knows the consequences. So that is a kind of meddling that is not acceptable, even in international law. It is not a meddling that is acceptable to the country because we are putting ourselves at risk. We already, it's like we are declaring war on, a faction of Sudan's government, which is, I think, something that should not have escaped our diplomatic corps in Kenya.
I was saying something before I forget it. You see, he raised an issue when he said when the president took over.
Oh, we did?
Yes, everybody accepted him from the south. Happy. You see, the truth of the matter is, before the Gen Z Mandamanos last year.
He might have meant South Rift.
You see, before the that's a good one. Before the Mandamanos, what happened is the president was a poster boy for the West, and they were trying to elevate him to look like some sort of this brilliant, new, fresh of breath air leader from Africa that would lead the West Quest in Africa. And that is why he went to, he was in South Africa at that parliament. He spoke about, we have to leave the dollar, we have to unite, open borders and everything. When he left, he comes and rolls the carpet for an imperialist. And he speaks totally different. That is why my good friend Juju, or you call him Julius, when he was in Kenya, he said, I'm trying to locate this president. During the day, he's a Pan-Africanist. At night, he dines with imperialists. So what does he stand for? And that is the question. You see, so it shows how we run even our foreign policy. That's I told you. Nile kuja tuongea tuwezi kosana.
Maybe that is strategic ambiguity.
It is not, because at the end of there are consequences, as he tells you. There are going to be consequences. Because at the end of the day, you're not too smart for everyone. Yes, he claimed he's brilliant. And before I forget, he mentioned thing about fuel and the consolidation fund. This president came up with G2G, which has failed. And there is money that is meant to be paid. So how brilliant is that? So when he says nothing has changed, as Mongale says nothing has changed, he has just maintained the status quo. It's just that maybe what was happening before, he's gone a notch higher.
I hope you're registering for your PhD. So, can we have the last word on this?
You know, this RSF, SAF thing, I think we are cheapening international relations. Even in this country, if today we see Karua and Raila greeting each other at the airport, we will read too much into it. When RSF came here to this country, nobody stopped SAF also to come, even thereafter. Nothing. Because if you want to be a good arbiter, if you ask me to come and you are fighting with the Nurdin, I will listen to you. If tomorrow he says, let me also come, you listen to me, I will listen to you. And if President William Ruto told RSSF, I know you want to come, don't come, they will also think that the president is supporting the other faction. I don't have to be your enemy because you are a friend of my enemy. I think that is a poor way of looking at it.
Yeah, let me just stop you in the middle and ask you that when say RSF or SAF are coming to Kenya, do they need authorization from anybody to come to Kenya?
They can even come as on their individual capacities. Nothing stops them from coming that way. And we have no official communication of this is what they agreed with the president of Kenya to go and do or not to go and do. And also remember, RSF is the one controlling the capital Khartoum, not SAF. So these people who are talking and telling us that, oh, you know the consequences, and they are unable to deal with their own opponents. How will they now deal with Kenya? And they have been thrown out of the capital. So wasitutishe. But anyway, wait a minute. Hii mambo ya kuwawacha mnaingia tu vile mnataka mtawacha. Nyamaza.
Umekuwa RSF.
No. Sijakuwa, but you see, I also want to make a comment about how President Uhuru Kenyatta handled the 2013 and 2017 riots. Because I heard Nurdin talk about people who were killed during the Maandamano, and then, do you know, during this time, government operatives literally ran over a crowd on Uhuru Highway. I'm sure you watched it. The policemen were not waiting for the rioters to come onto Ngong Road. They were in Kibera at their doorsteps. They were in Mathare waiting for them there. And it was a very ruthless thing. Even those who died, they were killed right at their doorsteps. Wachana na hawa walikufa wakati wa Ruto who died in the streets, looting and destroying property. Hii maandamano ya Raila, these people died in the streets, in the battle. Uhuru killed these people right in their houses. Where did Baby Pendo die? Where did the Mathare guy die? Right in the corridors of his house. He did not even get out there to come and riot in town. And these people did not come out to tell us that Uhuru must go, to tell us that he's a bad man like they are telling Ruto. These people here you see here, Mwangale, Nurdin, and all these other people, they have been captured by the Kikuyu propaganda.
Maybe they were still in law school.
And they don't know. One day you will know that is a propaganda.
But we can